Hello and thanks for joining me today. I've been spending this morning getting ready for a workshop that I'm doing tomorrow. I'm going to an art group and we're going to be talking about drawing animals. So I thought I might as well share that with you, some of the things that I've been thinking about this morning that I was going to talk to the art group there about. And I do know a lot of you like drawing animals, so I thought it would be helpful to you. So I've done them a little handout with one or two quick points, and the first thing that I've written in there really is that when we're drawing people, you may recall we did a figure drawing the other week, and if you haven't seen that I'll put the link up there. And with that one, when you're drawing people, there are basic rules you can follow. So the distance between your eyes is similar to the length of your eye. Your head goes into your body 7 times. All these kind of basic rules. Although there are exceptions to those rules, we can learn them and we can apply them when we're doing figures. Now with animals, there are so many different species of animals, but even within species the proportions are completely different. So we're talking about horses today mainly. So if you think of a thoroughbred racehorse and then compare that to a little Shetland, a miniature, the length of the legs are going to be completely different in comparison to the length of the body, etc., because of the different species. So you've got to look at each one individually. So really I'd said, and I have talked about this before, is we need to start with the skeleton and then we need to measure things against each other. What else did I put on there? Yeah, and with horses, do pay attention to the legs and the feet, because if you don't know about horses and then somebody who sees your painting, who's, spends a lot of time with horses, will very quickly realise if you've got the legs and the feet wrong. So things have to, like we said about figure drawing, things have to be anatomically correct. You have to be able to look as if, it's able to be in that position. So think about the skeleton, then the muscles, and then the fur, and think about the direction that the fur's going. So I've put that, measure parts of the body in relation to others, and keep in mind that animal drawings will include foreshortening. So in other words, they're not always going to be symmetrical onto the camera. We're going to see them from an angle quite often. So this is an example of foreshortening where we're seeing the horse, both of these horses, going away from us, not flat onto the camera, so they're neither that way on or completely the other way on. They're at an angle. So we know that this body is longer than it appears. So what we're seeing is the body foreshortened. We're not seeing the full length, so you've got to draw what you see, not what you know is there, if that makes sense. Okay, so, and what else did we put in here? Yeah, and that's one thing I put, and again, I think I've talked about this before. If you're very familiar with animals, even if it's just you've got a cat or a dog or whatever, when you're drawing, do imagine yourself touching your animals, stroking them, because when you run your hand over your dog or your cat, you will feel where the skeleton is, you will feel how hard they are on the top of their little head, and you'll know where their eye sockets are and all these kind of things. So imagine that you're doing that as you're drawing, and draw around the animal, and that will all help your drawing. So I've put on there, when you're doing portraits, pay particular attention to the eye socket and keep your detail for the eye and for the mouth, because that's where the character is. So you don't need masses of detail in the rest of it. Sometimes the ears are actually quite detailed, because if your ears are very sort of individual to the certain animal. So what I'm going to do, and what I'm going to do when I go tomorrow for this workshop, is talk through some of these photographs. Now all these photographs were off Pixabay, and I have talked about this before, and I will put the link again in the description below. But the great thing about Pixabay is if you're using these photographs that they're license free. Now if you do use a photograph off there and you end up selling your work and making money from it, there is a little function on Pixabay you'll see in the top right corner when you're looking at the pictures, and it says coffee, and basically that's a little tip box. So if you like the picture that you've downloaded and you want to say thank you to the photographer, especially if you've profited from that photograph, you can just buy them a cup of coffee or whatever. So you can leave them as little as £1 or £10, £20, whatever you want to leave them, even 50 pence, as a little way of saying thank you. So that's what that little coffee thing is on the Pixabay website. But it's just such a vast website, and you'll find photographs on all kinds of subjects, not just animals. So really I'll talk about how I would tackle these. So with this one again, like I said, we've got the foreshortening. So to begin with, think about where the skeleton is underneath, and then building up the muscles. And then with this one, because they've got all this lovely water around, you'd make it quite loose, and so you do what I would do is start with a very accurate drawing, get your drawing very accurate, and once you're happy with your drawing, then have some fun splashing some paint around and getting that water in. Again, this is a portrait one, so with horses, this is one very distinctive thing, is the cheek. And again, this comes back to saying about touching the animal. Imagine your hand going round that cheek and just how big they are. Very round here, and it's very soft under here, and then the mouth is very soft and often very relaxed, especially here where they're in the field. So you quite often have this part of the mouth coming down quite a long way when it's relaxed. And again, this is something a very good picture because you can see where the skeleton is on this picture because of the light and because she's got such short hair. And one mistake people make is drawing the leg starting here and here. Your leg doesn't start there, it starts at the hip, so that must be drawn from the hip and from the shoulder. I'm going to do this one for you another day actually. I just printed that off because I thought that was a bit of fun. That's again off Pixabay, a nice zebra there, and I think what I'll do is draw it just in black and white and then fill these white stripes in with lots of different colours. That was the reason for that. Again, another water one, and this time with a figure on. So again, I would do quite an accurate drawing, but then have some fun splashing maybe some Brusho or something around to get the water in there. Some lions. So this comes back again to what I was saying earlier about the fur being quite a distraction for the skeleton underneath. So we've got all this fur around here, but really he's got quite a hard skeleton underneath, and a lot of this is just fur and not muscle. So you've got to think about where his actual skull stops there, where his cheeks are, and try and ignore the fur to begin with as you're drawing, and put that on maybe a bit later, because you need to get in where his shoulders are and everything else. So think about the skeleton first and then build up to putting these finishing details on of all this fur, and get it going in the right direction. Can you see here his fur's going down here into his little knee, and here it's going away. So that's all going to help reinforce the shapes of those muscles and the skeleton underneath, because that where the fur is lying on top of it is making that shape. This one, I just love the character of his face. He looks so sad, so perhaps do that sometime. Look how small his ears are in comparison to everything else. So again, that's another thing you need to do, is measure things against each other. So his ears are tiny, not much bigger than his eyes. So yeah, measure things. Again, that was because the mouths are so soft. I like that, particularly like that picture, and the light on the front of his nose there. So that would be a bit of an exercise in tone, really, getting very dark in his nose there, and then very, very light for this highlight that's on there, and this bit of water that's dropping down. He's obviously just having a bit of a drink. And this one, some movement in it with his tail flicking up. And think about where the animal's weight is as well. So whichever animal you're doing, whether it's laid down or stood up, whatever, think about where the weight's lying. So at the moment all this weight's on here, but think about where he's going next as well. And that's more apparent in some of the other photographs. Again, that was just a nice picture of a close-up of an eye that I thought I might do at a later date. Okay, so this one I printed off because it's quite often a good idea when you're drawing to draw the bridle first. So draw the basic shapes of the head. So you've got this, I sort of split him into three shapes. You've got this big cheek and the shape of his nose here, and then the top of his head. Once you've got the basics in, then put the bridle on before you start doing any of the rest of the detail, because it's very easy if you get the bridle in the right place to then fit everything else around it. So that's something I do quite often, is get the bridle in to begin with. Again, another horse one just running towards us. So again, you've got that foreshortening. And you'd have to think about how you would tackle this misty feel. Again, it's sort of an exercise in light and dark. And you could do that one just in pencil. Just leaving where the light's hitting his mane there, just leaving that white paper. Okay, so these two, and I said before about where the weight is, think also about where the horse is coming from and where he's going to, and that helps you with thinking about where the shift in the weight. So at the moment, this one is mid-turn, so it's thinking about changing direction. So the weight's very quickly going to move in this one. So as well as being foreshortened, it's also very much twisting its body. And you've got to get, when you're doing that, you've got to get these lines of the muscles and the shoulders in the right place, otherwise it will look, you know, as if something's broken or not quite right. And again, think about the weight. With this one, he's just about to launch off his hind legs onto his front legs. So, you know, at the moment that weight is very much down this leg. So you've got to have that connected to the ground, otherwise it's not going to look right. And similarly with this one, so although he's moving very slowly, or she's moving very slowly, we can tell by this foot that any minute now this foot's going to go down. At the moment the weight's on this leg here, but as soon as that foot there goes down, this leg's going to be lifting up and the weight's going to be moving forward. So we know which direction they're going in. And you can use some directional lines as well when you're adding your paint later on to give you an impression of where that's going. And this one, I just thought there was a nice relationship between the rider and his horse. So just with his arm over the top there. So it's quite, you could make that, you could simplify that quite a bit. Just some nice simple shapes with the hat. Not too much detail. Okay, so I hope you found that useful. If you'd like me to do more videos like this, just talking through things and perhaps how I tackle them, let me know. Any questions, if you want to pop those in the comments below. As always, if you want to follow me on social media, you'll find me at Callie Lawson Art on Instagram. So, and on there I put quite a few pictures of my own work as well and the things that I'm doing at the moment. So thanks very much for watching, and bye for now.